Hello and welcome to Women in Digital Currency series. I'm Lynn Rose. I'm a media strategist, media entrepreneur, and high performance and leadership expert. And I also play in the world of digital currency. It's so exciting. And we have with us our panelists. We have Lisa Vivori. She is a VP. Was VP of marketing for a billion-dollar company and has a background having worked for the Fed as a monetary policy analyst. And we also have Kimberly Tilley, and she has a background in medical aesthetics and worked with the Hollywood elite. Is also a social media guru on YouTube, and they all play in the world of digital currency. And we have Tom McMurran, and he is our digital currency expert, helping us demystify in this particular segment of our series to demystify Bitcoin that began it all in digital currency. And Tom McMurran is the Amazon best-selling author of Seventh Disruption and the founder of The Coin Lifestyle and New Currency. All right, Tom, people understand the word Bitcoin, but boy, it has been surrounded by controversy or people just not understanding about how it works or what's this mean. So open up us into the world of Bitcoin.
Let's talk first about what Bitcoin is. It's not a coin, so it's a terrible name because people think it's actually a coin. It's actually a software program, and it's a software program that runs on top of blockchain technology, which we've talked about in one of our segments. And it's something that, it was a software program that was uploaded to the internet in 2010 by somebody named Satoshi Nakamoto, who nobody knows who that person is. So that's kind of one of the mysteries of digital currency. It's kind of interesting. But the Bitcoin is really just a method. It's a method of exchange. A lot of people think of like PayPal. I remember when PayPal first came out, it was kind of like, Lynn, I'm going to send you money using an email address. It was like, wow, that was weird. That was weird, And, if I were to tell you, I want to send you value via a serial number, a lot of people think initially that that's a little odd, but it's what we do every day. In fact, if you look at the bills that you have in your wallet, they have serial numbers on them. And if you were to erase those bills, I think Lisa would probably concur. If I erased the serial numbers off my bills, the banks wouldn't be too keen on that and probably wouldn't honor them if I did that, because that's where the value is actually tracked from. And so digital currency, Bitcoin is really a serial number. And Bitcoin, when it published their software, there was 21 million serial numbers created. So that means there's 21 million units of value that are available. And as the value, as the demand around those 21 million coins has increased, so has the value of the coin. We've seen it go from 10 cents to $1,203. And because, that was the number one producing investment in the history of the world. And a lot of people are like, but then it went down to 200 but now it's back up to 750 or something like that. And it has been a little bit volatile. So volatility is one thing that has scared people away from Bitcoin because they don't know if it's trustable. And the other thing is, because it's a software, it can't defend itself, meaning there's no marketing officer, there's no PR strategist. What you read on the internet became the reality of Bitcoin. And it's unfortunate, Lynn, because Bitcoin is helping people all around the world transmit value. I mean, think about the people that are getting hit with a poor tax in money remittance, the people who work here in the United States and send money back to Mexico. They're just getting screwed over by these money remittance companies that are charging them 10 to 20%. And we've got services now where they can pay 1%, where they can send money to another country. And actually an Uber-like driver will show up to the person's house and deliver the cash to their house for a very small fee. And so Bitcoin is not a coin. It's a serial number. It's a method. It's a protocol of us transferring value to each other. And it's something that it gives us a lot more control. It puts more money back in our pocket. We have the ability to acquire a currency that can increase in value, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, how would you like your $20 bills to turn into $400 bills? Wouldn't that be cool? And that's basically, we've seen several currencies do that. And when your buying power increases, life gets easier. And Bitcoin is one of those elements that increases your buying power.
We need to clarify that Bitcoin is not all digital currency. Bitcoin is a choice of digital currency. It started, but sometimes people hear digital currency and they think Bitcoin and Bitcoin alone. They don't realize there's all these other digital currencies that have followed, and now some surpassed. So I just wanted to make sure I made that clarification.
No, there's over 600 digital currencies actually, but there's only about 3 that are worth paying attention to right now, and it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and OneCoin. And the market is there will be an Amazon coin probably, and a PayPal coin probably one day, and a Citibank coin, and it's no different than different countries having their different currencies. I anticipate Delta Airlines will have a coin in lieu of their frequent flyer miles, which is again a method of payment that we use, of an exchange of value that we use to get more value in our life. And so it's just a natural adoption to adopt some digital currency in your life and be able to spend it and use it. And Bitcoin is 7 years old. It is the leader in the industry. It's a first adopter, a first mover, which is that's a distinct disadvantage in technology, though, because other people can look at the mistakes that Bitcoin has made and fix them and be even bigger. We saw that with MySpace and Facebook, of course, being a second mover for Facebook. But it takes a minute to wrap your head around it. And I tell people, go to an ATM machine, a Bitcoin ATM machine, and download an app and put some money on your phone, and then go buy some Starbucks points and do a transaction. It's harmless. And when you realize that you can buy Nike gift cards for 20% off because you're using Bitcoin, or you can get 10 to 15% off on Amazon using an app if you use Bitcoin, hey, 10 to 15% back in the pocket at the end of the month is a good thing.
Wow.
Okay. Tom, you mentioned the 21 million Bitcoin, and one of the things that we've talked about is having a currency that's independent of banks or a Federal Reserve Bank or any government. And so one of the things that appealed to me so much was the fact that a digital currency is so truly, the value is so truly driven by supply and demand, and you can't artificially create it. And unlike you mentioned that the currencies don't have a marketing person or anybody that can defend it. They also don't have a Federal Reserve Bank or any central bank that can decide to print more of it or take some of it out of circulation. And I mean, there are very good reasons why central banks do what they do to influence the value of currency, but to have a currency that is completely independent of a central bank is it's a very different notion. And you want to talk about that at all?
Well, I think, Lisa, when you look at exchanging value, I mean, people exchange value with Beanie Babies, marbles, baseball cards. I mean, when we exchange value with each other, there's obviously the market determines that value, whether it's an auction or something like that. But it's just that it's the next form of payment. And let me delve into this for a second, if I can. Smart refrigerators are being marketed right now, Samsung. And you're going to see, your milk is going to have a little chip under the label that will tell the refrigerator when your milk is, number one, expired. It'll tell your refrigerator when it has gotten half empty. And you may have your refrigerator programmed to buy milk for you when that occurs. If my milk expires, buy me a new gallon of milk. Or if it gets half empty, buy me a new gallon of milk. And they're not going to be using Visa, MasterCard to do that transaction because the fees involved in a Visa, MasterCard transaction are too much. And they're going to be using digital currency. I tell people when you have in the future, your neighbor is going to have solar panels. And if your AC is turned up a little too high, you might be using some of your digital currency. Your thermostat might be buying energy from your neighbor's solar panels if you live in the city. I mean, there's so many things that are going to happen. Your electric car is going to buy energy from one of those little charging posts using digital currency. And so Bitcoin, having the ability to have this independent currency. And by the way, the US dollar is independent of the United States government because the Federal Reserve is not owned by the United States government. It is an independent bank that services the United States government. And Congress obviously has to authorize the Federal Reserve to print money. And so the Federal Reserve is really an independent bank of the United States of America, but they are authorized to print our currency. And so when you think about the idea of having another currency in the United States to transact business with, we're just setting up another independent banking system, a peoples-based banking system that has our interest in mind rather than the deep pockets of the banking industry. I don't see all of us having a bunch of tall buildings. I see the banking industry owning a bunch of tall buildings, and we're paying for it. But digital currency and Bitcoin will just give us the ability to have a person-to-person banking network that will give us more control. It will give us more freedom. It will give us more profitability in our life. It'll save us money. And I think that it's time. I mean, our country is built on free enterprise and the ability to compete. The banking industry has no competition right now. Well, they do now since blockchain technology has been released in Bitcoin. But I'm just excited about what we're doing because it's going to make banks be more competitive.
What would you say, Tom, is the biggest advantage to learning about Bitcoin right now or digital currency?
Well, we could ask somebody in Greece that question. What do you think they would? What do you think they would answer? You show up to your ATM machine, you got $1 million in the bank, and $50 is available. I don't know if that'll ever happen in the United States. It would be a disaster if it did for the rest of the world if we had currency controls put in place like Greece did. But I think the biggest advantage is I don't know. A lot of people are leasing their world in life, Kim. I mean, they're leasing their cars, they're leasing their homes, they're leasing their minds to an employer. They're leasing their credit card debt and their earnings potential to the bank because they're just paying off interest rates on their cards. And I think the biggest advantage for learning about Bitcoin is it gives you, to me, one of the areas in life that won't have debt as part of the DNA. You won't have debt in that industry because it's not part of the DNA of digital currency. And it will help you pay off those bills. That's one thing Bitcoin can do as it appreciates in value and grows in value. I personally purchased some Bitcoin back in 2015 for about $220 a coin, and it's at $750 a coin now. So like I said, how would you like your $20 bills to turn into $80 bills? You could pay off debt faster that way, couldn't you?
Absolutely. So. I know I'm teaching my son all about it. Yeah. So that's the future.
It is. And kids understand it, by the way, because they do gaming and they understand mining and acquiring currency, and they understand using that currency to buy, to buy things. And mining is one of those topics that kids really understand, and we don't as older adults because we don't play those games. But yeah, it's interesting.
We are going to be talking about mining in our next series. But before we go there, I know that within digital currency, there's centralized and there's decentralized. Can you address that with the differences with Bitcoin, and also if there's any other myths to debunk or at least help us understand?
Yeah, I mean, when we look back at the two different computer strategies, Apple was closed source, and all the programmers hated Apple because they were closed source and they wouldn't allow access to their code. And of course, the PC industry was open source, and you got a lot of viruses with the open source because the programmers knew how to do that. But decentralized versus centralized, I personally believe that centralized is going to be the more common model because, with the decentralized model, there's nobody in control. Bitcoin is a software. There's nobody that controls it. Nobody can alter it. Nobody can come in and say, okay, we're going to issue another 21 million coins. And, it's locked down. It's the software that cannot be changed. It's immutable. It cannot be defrauded. It's a very powerful software where, decentralized just means that there's nobody really in charge. There's nobody that can, create terms of service, and bad things can happen on a decentralized platform. People can finance terrorism. They can do drug deals. They can do anonymous transactions, and the governments aren't going to be very keen to that. And centralized is where you have an authority that will require you to submit an ID or submit some paperwork, like a proof of address or something like that. And honestly, I kind of like it because I really don't like being part of a currency that can be used for bad things, for evil. I like the idea of a currency that can be used for child sex trafficking. Kind of bothers me, and drugs and murder for hire and terrorism and all the things that we see modern day currencies right now that are being used for. With a centralized digital currency, we could put an end to that.
Wow.
And the centralized gives us a little bit more point of authority to say, hey, you can still do private transactions. You can still grow wealth for your family and create a legacy and save money on bank fees and 80% on remittance fees and things like that. But at the end of the day, you're not going to use this money for evil. And if you are, we'll just hit the delete button because we don't want you on our financial network. And I think that's very powerful. But centralized has a little bit more authority. But at the end of the day, you can't leave people unchecked in society today because there's too much craziness out there. And so centralized and decentralized are two different philosophies. They are directly opposed to each other, just so you know. The Bitcoin community does not understand the OneCoin community, and the OneCoin community doesn't understand the Bitcoin community. We understand it, but we know it's not the future of cryptocurrency.
So Bitcoin is decentralized and OneCoin is centralized.
Correct.
And there's a number of other decentralized.
Yeah. And let me clarify, that'd be like a PayPal, if you've ever used PayPal, combined with a cryptocurrency, as opposed to like PayPal uses government issued currency now. So envision in your mind PayPal using a cryptocurrency for all of our transactions instead of government issued currency. That would look more like a centralized cryptocurrency.
Interesting. Even though Bitcoin is decentralized, it would be centralized within PayPal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you centralize it, then you have a little bit more control over it. Yeah, and you'd be able to require anybody who uses it to submit documents and ID encrypted on the blockchain. So we're not still dealing with the identity theft and all of that. So it's still using the powerful encryption of the blockchain, but it's something that the governments aren't gonna anything that's anonymous, they're gonna go after. If they can't tax it, and if they can't know where the money's flowing and prevent it, they're going to have a problem with it. And so we think centralized is a better model for the masses.
Got it. This is really helpful information. And by the way, you mentioned cryptocurrency and people hear digital currency. Cryptocurrency is digital currency. Maybe does that come from encryption?
Yeah. It's cryptography. It's cryptography is why they call it cryptocurrency. And so it has nothing to do with graveyards. People think cryptocurrency like crypt, but no, it's cryptography just means it is encrypted with the highest level of protection that your finances can have. And Bitcoin is infinitely more secure than the US financial network or any financial network in the world.
I just love that. Well, what's also great is people sometimes think, and we're going to talk about this in our next series, but people sometimes think, oh, this digital currency, it's built on air, it's just numbers. And actually you have to earn the numbers because it's an exchange, as you were saying, Tom. It's currency itself is an exchange of energy, really. Right?
Yeah.
Money is an exchange of energy. I do this for you, so you give me money, and that represents the exchange of energy. And same thing in the way digital currency works. And the way that is through what they call mining. So in our next series, we're going to explore about mining. So you're going to want to tune into that series to our next segment about mining, to understand that, and make sure you also see any of our other series so you get that full scope about digital currency and can dive inside this exciting world. I want to thank you for joining us. Thank our panelists. We'll see you on the next segment. I'm Lynn Rose, and again, welcome to the Women in Digital Currency.